If you walked up to me right now and asked me what my favorite lens is, I'd tell you it's the Sigma 105mm f1.4. And I know that lens has been a little bit of a legend on this channel, and I may have even convinced a couple of you to pick one up. But everyone who I know who owns the 105mm says the only thing that they regret is that they didn't get one sooner. And yes, I know the 105mm is huge, it's heavy, it's actually a nightmare to travel with, but the photos it produces are just ridiculously good. It kind of gets a free pass to be whatever shape it likes because it performs so well. So naturally, Sigma discontinued it. I don't know, maybe if it wasn't selling enough, maybe the business is just shifting direction. Either way, it's gone. So that brings us to now. Sigma's new 200mm f2. And if you think the 105mm is a monster prime lens, the 200mm is on another level. And I know that this is not a direct replacement for the 105mm, since the 200mm is obviously double the focal length, but both of these lenses do share some DNA. They're both huge, they're both heavy, low aperture prime lenses, and they use the same 105mm filter thread. Maybe it was a subtle hint. It kind of feels like Sigma is saying, here's your new 105mm, but it's a 200mm. But anyway, the thing is, for this lens, it is stupid light. It's 1.8 kilos, which might sound heavy, but that's 700 grams lighter than Canon's old 200mm f2 and over a kilo lighter than Nikon's DSLR version of this lens. So if you've ever hauled one of these around, this lens will feel nimble in comparison. So anyway, to test out if it's any good, we need to touch some grass. A very special thank you to the guys over at YTG for allowing us to shoot their stunning Ferrari 328 GTS. If you're a fan of Magnum PI, you might recognize this car. But I think this is the perfect subject to see what 200mm can really do. And we've also been blessed this morning with perfect conditions. But I quickly ran into an issue. For a lot of my work, I don't usually shoot at such a high focal length. And I'm sure if there's any sports or wildlife photographers watching this right now, you're probably laughing at me because 200mm is barely scratching the surface. However, for me, it is definitely out of the norm for my kind of work and the kind of photos I like to take. With any photo shoot I go on, I find I have to warm up, move around quite a lot, and I don't tend to waste time on any photos if they're not working for me. I'll just move on to the next thing. And this morning I found that I was doing that a lot more than usual, and I was getting frustrated with myself and the lens because I feel like the lens, it wasn't producing the kind of photos I was aiming for. But anyway, after I started bitching and moaning, I realized that this big lens needs a big distance to work with the shots I'm going for. So we found a huge long stretch of road and it finally started to come together. And that is when I started to fall in love with this lens. And it wasn't just about the photos, it was the way that the lens was performing. The focus speed of this prime was ridiculous. They reckon it's about 0.3 of a second, which is right up there with Sigma's 7200 sports lens. And it has 6.5 stops of stabilization, which kind of feels like cheating when you want to nail those longer handheld shots. And you also might have noticed that Sigma's lenses used to be all black, but Sigma are now making all their sport lenses look a little bit like Sony or Canon's bigger white telephoto lenses. But I actually put these lenses side by side, and the Sony and Canon lens have a bit more of an off-white look, but this Sigma lens is more like a fresh white t-shirt in the sun kind of white. And it's not just for looks. I found out it's actually thermal insulation paint, which basically works like SPF 50 for your lens. Apparently it's meant to stop the barrel from heating up and expanding in direct sunlight, so your optics will stay sharper and nothing starts shifting around inside the lens when it gets hot. So if you combine that with weather sealing on the switches, the rings, and the mount, obviously, this lens is clearly built to take a beating. Coming back, I'm still not sure where this lens fits in on the food chain. On paper, this lens is a dream for wildlife, sports, motorsports, but in those worlds, a lot of zoom lenses really dominate the space. Most of what I've seen and heard from other photographers are definitely lean towards 100 to 400, 200 to 600, 300 to 600, even 400 to 800. And sure, of course, I don't want to completely neglect prime lenses. There's definitely 300 mils, 400 mils, 600 mils, and even 1200 mils I've seen. But a 200 mil as a prime seems like a little bit of a weird spot. For wildlife and sport, it's probably too short. Events and weddings, portraits, and even automotive work, it feels like it's too long. Most people would probably just use a 7200 f2.8. But what I will say is having the f2 for shooting in a bit more low light, like what happened this morning, means I could get phenomenal shots without pushing my ISO into the stratosphere. And especially if you're shooting wildlife or indoor sports, music gigs, or a 24-hour motorsports event, something like that, this lens could really excel. And that 200mm at f2 gives you a level of subject separation and that low light ability that a 7200 f2.8 or any 7200 for that matter could just never touch. And that's why I wanted to compare it to the 105, because the 105 could pull off things a 28 to 105 lens could never dream of doing. So I guess that's where the difference lies here. The 200mm f2 could be a killer creative lens for portrait shooters who just want that absurd background blur and compression. So I'm still kind of sitting here scratching my head about how many people would actually drop the money on this lens, but I can see how in the right hands, it could be someone's absolute dream lens.